Hello, Oliver. Seems I can't hear you. You are muted right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
sorry, I was just muted. No, still. I will be muted again because I want to get some hot water here for a tea, and this is quite noisy here.
Sure. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'll be
Yes.
helping you with moderation of the event. So, yeah, I will be like talking. I will pass everyone here to event, and also I'll check questions in the chat if there are any. So yeah, I'll be your help for tonight.
Very good. If you find interesting questions, please feel free to disrupt me. Yeah, you can interrupt me and say, "Hey, Oliver, there's an urgent question. We are just talking about that. Can we just answer that?" I like this very much when I'm not just holding a monologue, but when there is some life in the process.
Yeah. I understand. Cool.
How many registrations do we have?
I have no idea. Actually, I do not have access to that. But as far as I heard, around 20 people should be there.
Okay. Give me 3 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yeah, of course. All right. Yeah, sure.
All rest, am I easy to hear and to understand?
Yes, everything is good. I think we can wait for 2 minutes for people to join, and then we will start.
No problem.
All right, I think we can start. Anyway, there is a recording. People will be able to join to see it.
That's running.
So guys, please meet our today's speaker, Oliver Lehmann. Oliver is PMP and the former president of the PMI Southern Germany Chapter, and has been a volunteer with PMI since 1998. That's like fantastic. He lives in Munich, Germany, and currently works as project management trainer and trainer in management of project business specifically. And in addition, Oliver dedicates a lot of time to helping contractor organization improve their customer projects and reduce the risks that they bring. And today's topic for our event is the specific challenges of project business and how to meet them. Just like one organizational item, I will be checking the chat for questions. So if you have something to ask, I believe you would have. The topic is very interesting, so you can write your questions in chat and we will be able to answer. If there will be something interesting and on time, I will either interrupt Oliver or we will wait and have the time for questions in the end. So yeah, Oliver, that's your mic now.
All right, many thanks to you. Yeah, I'd like to ask another question as well. This is a session, this is a meeting that should bring you maximum benefit. So if there is something you don't understand, I think most of you, all of you are not English native speakers. I am not one either. I grew up with German language. So if there is anything that you don't understand, immediately ask and say, hey, Oliver, I didn't understand this. Can you repeat that? Can you explain that? Yeah. So I love to have these sessions as lively and as interactive as possible. You may be aware, I had a similar session 1.5 years ago with the PMI Ukraine chapter, when we talked about generally the view of project business from the view of a contractor. Today, the contractor view will also be there, but we will look at this from a customer view. This is on one side interesting, project business from a customer side. Of course, if you are on customer side, and if you run into such a situation that you have to work with contractors. But I think it's also important for contractors to understand the other side, to understand what drives them and what are the things that give them sleepless nights. So I think you will have a benefit, whatever your position is. And many in project management, in project business management, are on both sides They are at prime contractors. They work for a paying customer, but at the same time, they work with subcontractors. So it's a bit like a ham in the sandwich situation, which can be very beneficial and can be a great situation, but it could also be really a recipe for disaster. Right? Quite often, project business is high-risk business for all organizations, for all parties involved, individuals often as well. Yeah. Something about me, for those who don't know me, I'm trainer in project management and project business management. I have one focus on certification. I run the, I think, largest learning group for PMP certification in the world, which is in LinkedIn. It's a group called I Want to Be a PMP. And if anyone is interested in that, make contact with me and I'll give you in LinkedIn and I'll give you the URL to that. I have some degrees. One is an MSc in project management. Then, of course, I'm a PMP. I'm also approved consultant educator in project business management, the topic that we have for today. I have several more certificates, including Microsoft Project, including business development and bid and proposal management. I'm a proof trainer there too. So over the years, you just collect these certificates. My special interest is project business management. I started this topic 6 years ago, not quite 5 years ago, with a book I wrote on that. And I found out it's a topic that is really not sufficiently discussed at the moment. Not enough people talk about that. PMI is very weak on this side still. It's maybe not shiny enough. I don't know why, but I think at the moment I'm the only person in the world who digs that deep into this topic, and it's such an interesting topic, and I learn something new there every day. Something new is there, and it's such an interesting thing to not just only see how people behave in projects, but how organizations behave when they do projects together. I do a lot of not-for-profit work. I have been a volunteer with PMI since 2002, so that's more than 20 years now. I was, as Orest already told you, the president of the PMI Southern Germany Chapter over 5 years, and I have a little. It's not a company. It's a platform. It's a think tank, a one-man think tank, the Project Business Foundation, where I do some private research, where I publish some work and some help for people who are involved with project business. The links to that are at the end of the presentation, so you don't have to make notes here. Some of the links I have, I added a QR code, so if you like, you can just photograph your or can scan your screen here. The easier way is probably to ask the chapter to give you the link for download for the handout, for the slides that we have here, so that you can directly click on the hyperlinks in the slides. I think that's the easiest way. I wrote 2 books published at Taylor and Francis group. One was about situational project management, and this was not so specifically about project business management, but that it turns up there. It turns up because I developed a typology of projects, different types of projects that often need different approaches, different tools, and so on. And part of this typology was the distinction of internal projects and customer projects. So this led me then to my next book, which had the focus on customer projects, projects for paying customers, projects as profit centers. They have to bring money home. And then I noticed when you want to talk about this, you also have to look at that from the customer side. You cannot look at a business interface where you have 2 parties doing business together, one party paying for services and products that the other party is providing. You cannot talk about an interface by looking only from one side at the interface. If you want to understand such an interface, you have to look from both sides. And really, it's such an interesting topic. And the deeper I dig, the more interesting it gets. And it's also my own roots. It's where I came from. Before I became a trainer, I was a project manager over roughly 13 years. I can't really say exactly because I never started as a project manager. I was this accidental project managers who is pushed deeper and deeper into project management. And at one point in time, you notice, hey, now I'm a project manager and I manage projects, and I did project business management. Actually, it was most of the projects, the vast majority, 80%, were for paying customers. I wrote a lot of papers on the topic, and I'm at the moment working on the next one, which will probably be published, I would assume, week after next week. And this is about taking the lessons from Turkey, learning some lessons from the disaster in Turkey, which is a humanitarian disaster, of course, but it's also a lesson, a collection of lessons for project business, because what went wrong there were project business things. It was the relationship between customers and contractors. So these are the things that I would like to discuss with you today. If you saw the previous presentation, then some parts of that may be familiar to you, others maybe will still be new for you. But we talk about the same topic now, looking a bit deeper from the customer side. I think still most of the audience I find in Ukraine is contractor side, of course. Project business is a big aspect of the economy in Ukraine, and I know that it's very hard for Ukraine at the moment to have a successful economy, because they are very much under a very bad challenge from Russia. So I stand with Ukraine. That's something you should always know. So these are the topics that I have. First of all, what changes when you have internal projects to outsourced projects? So we look at the customer side, what is changing on their side. Then the challenges of running projects as businesses, business on both sides, the buying business of the customer, and of course the selling business of the contractor. And then I would like to show you a solution that I like very much, that I found very effective, and it comes from NASA. And tomorrow I will have a web talk on that with a NASA guy, a former NASA guy who is now retired, and we will talk exactly about that again. But so you will know this all a bit earlier. If you want to join us tomorrow, you know this all a bit earlier than the rest of the audience. So let's have a look what it means. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Could that be? Just see that. Sorry. Just have to share my screen. Happens sometimes that you forget that. So here's my screen. From internal to outsourced projects is topic number 1. Then projects as businesses, the challenges, then solution that I want to show you. And then we have a lot of time for questions. But if you have an urgent question, please feel free to bring it up while I'm talking. You don't have to wait until the end. I like this very much, to have more interchange and interaction as far as possible over a meeting like Zoom. So I'd like you to meet Mark Miller, a project manager. Yeah, and he is running a project, and he says, oh, it's going so well. Yeah, he's so happy with the project. He successfully manages internal projects for the organization, strategic initiatives, change, new products, new services. Yeah, he builds teams across the organization, cross-functional teams. This is what he is good in, what he has learned to do. So let's have a look. What does it mean to have a cross-functional team? This is where we come from when we look at project business. We typically originally come from internal projects. So what we describe here is really internal projects. And you see a part of a functional organization here, something I would assume you are quite familiar with. We have a division manager on the top, and we have some departments here. Each department has a department manager here. And in these departments, you have employees. One of the departments is rather small, department 3. Yeah? So the manager has only 3 employees. Department manager 4 has twice as many employees. Can we make very carefully a first assumption. And which of these department managers has more influence and which has less influence? You may unmute yourself and give me your idea. Who could be more powerful in here? At least in old organizations, rigid organizations. Any idea?
More people in the department, that's more power for manager, right?
In many organizations, this is true. Yeah, it's not true everywhere. There are other influential factors. Maybe one has employees who are paid very poorly, and the other one has employees that are paid much better. So this could also be a reason. But generally, in many organizations, it is true what you said. The more people there, the more influence such a department manager has. Why that? Several reasons. One reason is they have a higher percentage of the value creation inside the organization. These employees create value, and if you have twice as many employees, it could well be that the value they create is twice as high. Another reason could be budget. The more people you have, often, in most cases, the more budget you have as a department manager. There are also soft factors. When rumors go around in the organization, grapevine radio, rumors are around. It is very likely that department manager 4 will hear them earlier because he has, or she, depending on who it is, the person has more employees, more ears and more eyes in the grapevine radio, in the world of rumors. Yeah? And how do you spread rumors? Yeah? You tell an employee, hey, please keep this for yourself, keep this private, but I have to tell you something. Yeah? I tell this my employee 4.1, and 4.1 thinks, oh, wow, huh? That's crazy. And then I tell the same thing to employee 4.2 and 4.3, and they can't keep it by themselves. They have to tell this to the employees of the other departments. And it's much, much easier to spread rumors if you have 6 people who tell others what you tell them than if you only have 3 employees. Of course, makes it much easier. So on the soft factor, rumors in the organization, you're in a much stronger position. For internal projects, this leads to an interesting effect. The effect is, if a project needs, maybe temporarily, an employee from a department to do some work, how will department managers typically respond to that? Will they like it or will they not like it? What do you think?
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah, that's a temporary loss of influence and of power. Yeah, and that's something department managers dislike. Yeah, deeply dislike. And it doesn't make a difference whether they are younger or older, whether they are male or female, whether they are in Germany, in Ukraine, in India, in USA, or wherever you like. I think department managers are the same all around the world. There's another factor playing in, and that's corporate culture. Some corporations have different cultures, so it's not always true. But I think for the majority of organizations that are organized like that, structured like that, functional organizations, I think this is true. And this is now what is happening here. Now we have a project here, and the project takes its team members, including the project manager, from somewhere inside the functional organization. What we see here is what we call a cross-functional project. You may know the term from PMBOK guides. Older versions had some diagrams on that, which I think didn't really describe this very well, but they had it at least in the last 2 versions. It is addressed, but it's no more described in detail, which I think is a weakness, because this is one of the most important problems that project managers have in internal projects. By the way, when you do a project for a paying customer, your paying customer is probably running an internal project. So it may be the problem of your customer. We'll talk about project managers doing contract projects under contract, customer projects. We'll talk about these a bit later. So what can it mean? Let me give you an example. Team member number 4. The project manager asks team member number 4, oh, I need someone to go to somewhere far away. Go to San Francisco, California. Yeah, what a wonderful place. I need someone to go there 5 days and do some project work for me in San Francisco. Please do me a favor. Please go there. Yeah? Book a ticket, an airplane ticket, book a hotel. Oh, in San Francisco, you will need a rental car. Public transport is not that good in Silicon Valley, at least. So, so book a rental car as well and go there for 5 days and do some work for me. At one point in time, department manager 4 hears, hey, my employee 4.4 is just booking a hotel, booking a flight, booking a rental car. What will probably be the first response of department manager 4 in such a situation? Will the person say yes or no? What would you expect?
If not notified in advance, probably no.
Probably no. Yeah, I cannot let you go. I need you here. I need you here at home. You cannot fly to San Francisco. Another question is, what will team member number 4, employee 4.4, what will this person do? The person could either frustrate the department manager and go on and fly to San Francisco, or frustrate the project manager and stay at home. What do you think is more likely here?
It's a difficult question for the team member number 4.4.
I think it's typically an easy question.
But typically, probably it will hear to department manager, not project manager. Yes,
will not go on with booking. Will not go to San Francisco. As much as the person would love to be there, it's a wonderful place, but the department manager does not allow that. Why does the team member rather follow the department manager than the project manager? Several reasons. One reason is when this project assignment is over, the team member will have to go back to the department, and the team member will not destroy the relationship with the department manager. Oh, and the team member knows the department manager, has known the department manager for much longer and knows the person much, much better. The project manager just comes around the corner and say, hey, go to San Francisco for me. And the team member doesn't know that much about the project manager because they haven't worked so intensively together. Could well be. The department assignment is long-lasting and the project assignment is short-lasting. So people will cover their back. Yeah, you know, cover your back. The acronym CYA, cover your back. Yeah. The person will cover his back. In this case, it's a man, and not go there. And the project manager will have the same problem wherever he goes. He will find that department managers just say no, and it's getting very difficult to get the work done in San Francisco. We call this situation a matrix situation, and what we just described is a weak matrix. In a weak matrix, project managers are often called project coordinators. They're not even called project managers, to tell the department managers, yeah, it's not a very powerful person. You are much more powerful than this person. Yeah? Then project managers and the project management team, yeah, with project assistants and maybe sub-project managers and whatever we may have there, yeah? Team leads, they are only part-time assigned to the project. I had some time ago a case in a chemical factory. It was a project, I think it was 15 million euros, something like that. And the project manager was expected to do this project part-time. And the project was running very, very badly because the project manager could not dedicate enough time to the project. There was other daily work that needed to be finished and needed to be done. So the person could only dedicate a part of his time to this project. But that's normal in a weak matrix situation. Project managers often have no own budget. They are expected to manage people and manage work and other things. but not money. They don't have a budget and they don't track costs. If a budget is there at all, often there is no budget there at all. If one is there, it is with a functional manager. It could be a project sponsor or another high-ranked functional manager. If the project manager wants to do some staffing, hey, I need two new team members from outside the organization. We have to hire them. The person cannot just go out and hire people. He or she has to go to the HR department and do it over the HR department. If the project manager wants to procure items, procure work from outside the organization, the person cannot just go out and find a contractor. The person has to talk with the purchasing department, and then the purchasing department will find the contractors. Maybe not the contractors that the project needs. The project, the people or the companies that the purchasing department thinks are best, probably because they are the cheapest. Resource availability, very low. Just my example with San Francisco was an example of low resource availability. Very hard to bring people on the project. And then it's often unreliable. Unreliable because someone promised you resources for the project. Someone promised you people and machinery, software licenses, rooms that you need, some office room also. And then at the moment when you need them, they say, oh, sorry, there is now some demand here with higher priority than your project. I cannot give you the person. I cannot give you the rooms or whatever it is. This often leads to a situation where the reputation of the project manager gets very, very poor. Because in such a situation, how do you want to be on time with your project? How do you want to deliver what is expected from you? It is very, very hard because you're lacking the influence inside the organization. Could there also be a strong matrix? Yes. Weak matrix is very common for internal projects, while a strong matrix is very common for customer projects. Not always, but often. If you do a project for a paying customer, of course, someone will go to San Francisco. There are several reasons for that. Reason number one, we want to send invoices to the customer. If no one goes to San Francisco, if the work there is not done, we cannot invoice this work. We can only invoice work that has been done. So it's the money stream coming in. Customer projects mean the project managers bring money home, and this makes them far more powerful here. And there's another reason for that. We do the project under contract. If we don't send someone to San Francisco, in my example, then we run into a breach of contract situation. And there are no more that many things that are really sacred to people, that are holy to people. I think for most people, unfortunately not all of them, we know a good example where it's not the case, but for most people, contracts are sacred because you know the trouble you run into if you don't stick to a contract. So of course, if the project manager needs someone to go to San Francisco, of course, someone will go there. This is how we make money. This is what we are there for. Our organization lives for doing projects. So if this is part of the project, of course, someone will go to San Francisco. And it will not be our least capable person. It will be a good person to go there. Availability of the project manager and the project management team, typically full-time. If the organization wants to make money with projects, then it has to assign a project manager full-time to this project. You don't want to run into capacity problems on the level of the project manager. The project manager should focus on the project because this is how we make money. And the same is true if the project is a bit larger. The same is true for the project management team. Project managers have their own budget in a customer project. The calculation is very simple. Think of a fixed price project. The customer will pay us 10 million euros. We want to keep for ourselves 2 million euros. So the budget for the project manager will be 8 million euros. It's a very simple calculation, works with all types of contracts. The budget is just taken from the money that the customer will pay minus the margin that the project is expected to make. And then what is remaining there will be the budget for the project manager. So they have an own budget and they use that. They may use this for procurement when they bring subcontractors in. They may use this for staffing when they need new employees. And it's very common here that project managers are expected to do that by themselves, at least in smaller contractor organizations. It's changing again when they are much larger, but in smaller organizations, it's very normal that the project manager does the staffing, does the procurement, maybe together with the HR department, together with the purchasing department. But the project manager is in the pilot seat. The project manager leads the process because the project manager knows what kind of people are needed, what kind of subcontractors are needed. Resource availability high. Of course, our team member 4 will fly to San Francisco. That's how we make money. That's how we make sure that we can send invoices to the customer. That's how we make sure that we stick to the contract. We don't want to be in breach of contract. This can bring us in so many problems. And this all helps the project manager to develop a much higher reputation in such a situation with this power, with this influence. It is much easier to do what is needed, to deliver what is needed on time, on budget, and with all the functionality, quality that is required. Yeah. So Mark is on the left-hand side. Yeah. He is in internal projects, which means he's a guy who knows how to navigate inside an organization, like a fish in the water. He knows things like stakeholder orientation, servant leadership, persuasiveness, social skills, self-control. You may be aware these are things that at PMI at the moment are seen as very high level and they're very much promoted inside PMI. But what we see here is this is all typical for the internal project, not for project business. Yeah. But now in his last project, he had a shortage of resources. Many kinds of resources were missing: people, tools, materials, and much more qualification and skills. And worst of all, sorry, this was too quick. Come back. Yeah, management attention. One of the most important, I think the most important resource that a project has is management attention. If you have management attention, I cannot guarantee you that you have people and machinery and software licenses and rooms, office space, whatever it is. But if you have no management attention, there is 100% guarantee that all the other resources will be missing as well. You will not have money, you will not have people, you will not have enough space for your project, and whatever it is, you need management attention so that you can get that. So he asked, how do you expect me to perform this project without resources? I'm not a magician, I'm a project manager. So the solution was for the organization to make a make or buy decision. Make means that the project is turned into an internal project, using own resources, internally performed project. Buy means tapping into external assets, turning them into project resources, assets of contractors. That's what this buy option is. This is what project business is about. You tap into the assets of other organizations and turn them into project resources. I have some numbers on that. It's a survey I made twice, by the way. I made the same survey in 2017 and then again in 2021, and maybe in, I don't know, 2 years again. I may repeat this again just to see this trend. And I asked people, make or buy in project business, what is the trend? What is the trend that you see? And I asked the trend for looking in two directions. One was the recent, the past experience. These are the blue bars here, and these reddish bars here, this rust, look like rust. They are the future. What is your expectation for the future? And the interesting thing is, about 2/3 clearly saw a trend towards more often buy. Things, work that would have been done in the past at home inside the own organization are now handed out to contractors. It was less than 30% who responded for the past and the future who responded, no, we are bringing more at home again. This happens, of course. Companies outsourced some work and now they say, no, we want to do it by ourselves. But you see, this is the clear minority in here. This is less than 30% that make this decision. And it's 2/3. If you look at these two numbers, yeah, on average, it's 2/3 who said, no, our tendency is to buy more to make less in the end, to buy more to make less. By the way, I have an interesting example for this left-hand side. An organization that decided to bring work home again and do it by themselves again was recently Volkswagen. They needed a new operating system for their electric cars, for the electric vehicles they have. They have an older operating system, which is no more up to the task. There are so many new things that they want to do with these cars, including autonomous driving. You don't touch the steering wheel anymore. The car finds the way alone, and so on. So they needed a new operating system for car electronics, and they completely failed. They are far over budget and they are far behind schedule because Volkswagen is too slow for that and doesn't have the people for that. If you are a top software developer and you have the opportunity to go to a specific software company, a dedicated software company, or to Volkswagen, where will you probably go? You will go to the software company. And that's something they didn't understand. They didn't have the people for that. And the people didn't have the freedom to develop what was necessary because it was all done in a weak matrix. 326 responses. I did the same thing 4 years ago. 4 years earlier. This is now 6 years ago. And I had 508, I think. But the result looked almost identical. It was the same thing. Very, very small differences between those two. Again, I'll give you I'll give the chapter, the Ukraine chapter, the slides so that you can use this link. You don't have to photograph it or type it down also. You can then use the link in here. I'm sure Orest will make sure that you all have access to that. Orest, yes? He didn't. Did you say yes? I didn't hear it. Can't hear you at the moment. Doesn't matter. It's enough that you hear me. Yeah, that's important. By the way, if you have questions, please ask. So Mark objected. Are you sure? We really want to bring strangers into our project. This is what it means, yeah? If you go procuring work, you bring strangers into the project, yeah? And he says, I have no experience with that. He has never done that. Here's the guy who leads own people. Yeah? And he got a lot of help promised to him. Yeah, and a lot of guidance. Everyone told him, oh, we know how to do this all. Yeah, we know how to bring people in and how to do it on the technical side, on the purchasing side, on the legal side, of course. Yeah, contracting side, and so on. Yeah, everyone told him, oh, I can help you with that. What they did was take away his autonomy as a project manager and make his own decisions. Now he had to deal with contractors and he had to deal with subcontractors, subcontractors, and so on. We will talk about this a bit later. Complex networks that emerge there that no one was prepared for. Yeah? And it was hard to find good contractors because good contractors are already blocked. They are already booked by someone else. So when you need them, they may not be available for you. And then they had these supply networks, and he had no idea who is part of his project in the end. Each of the organizations in there had own business interests, yeah? And often the business interests between these organizations and between them and the customer were conflicting. For some contractors, Mark's project was customer number one. For them, they said, oh, it's very important to make Mark happy. For others, Mark was just one of many, many customers, yeah, And if Mark wanted something, he had to stand in the waiting line and wait until it's his turn to bring up his wishes to the contractor, because the contractor had too many customers. Then he was confronted with legal terms and terminology he did not understand. By the way, this is true on both sides. This is true on the customer side, and this is true on the contractor side. People should learn a lot of technology, and they don't have this knowledge, and they don't have the opportunity to learn that. Then he had to deal with contracting. Contracting brings a problem to an organization. If something goes wrong in the project, this is no more a private thing. In an internal project, if something goes wrong, you make sure that nobody knows about that outside the organization. You keep it in-house, you keep it confidential. You broom it under the rug of management. But now it becomes public. I wrote some analysis in my papers on projects that failed because it's public knowledge. So we can talk about that. We can write about that. There are journalists who are really waiting for that, to make articles out of that. Hey, there is some conflict between two parties in a big project. And they love this kind of stories because these stories have readers. Mark spoke to his manager and said, boss, we need a solution. I cannot do it as you expected it from me. So let's talk about the challenges we have, and then let's talk about one of the many solutions I have. And here we again today will have a focus on the customer side. I also have solutions for the contractor side, but in 1.5 hours that we have here, I have to focus on 1 or 2 solutions. I cannot discuss many more. So first of all, the big challenge, the biggest challenge maybe, is that we have customers and contractors who have a different understanding of what constitutes success to them. On the customer side, success means, first of all, reliable vendor performance. We ordered something from a vendor. We expect this to be delivered, to be done for us, and we are prepared to pay for that. So we want to receive what we ordered and what we are prepared to pay for. Then, of course, they want VIP grade service. This sounds simple. It is not. Project customers often have the problem. They ask a question and it takes ages to receive an answer to their question. They want something to be done, and the contractor says, yeah, we will do that, but we have some more customers to satisfy, so please stand in your waiting line until it's your turn. And that's precisely not what customers want. They want VIP grade service, which, by the way, is expensive for the contractor. It's an expensive thing for the contractor to give the customer VIP grade service, because as a contractor, your resources are limited and you probably have more than one customer. So you have to somehow split your resources over this customer portfolio. Then supply network agility. Another thing that customers wish is when they have change requests, that they are managed relatively quickly, that there's a decision process that is very brief and very quick, and that changes are done. And if you have a supply network, this can become very, very difficult. If you have 10 suppliers and all are part of this change that you're going to do, it could well be that one of these suppliers says, hey, no, we are not doing that. We are not supporting this change request because it's our business that gets damaged by a change request. So that's another problem that customers often have. If one of these suppliers says no, it may well be that they cannot do this entire change, that it's not possible to do this change. What is it on contractor side? On contractor side, of course, the first thing you want to have is a happy customer. That's what you live from. That's your justification to exist, making customers happy. But then what you not only want, you need it. That's a profitable project. And it's not greed, it's need. You need to have a profitable project to allow the organization to survive. This is something you need for survival. This is not greed at all. I heard sometimes representatives from customer organizations complaining so much about these greedy contractors. They don't understand that, first of all, it's not greed. Sometimes it may be, but first of all, it is really need. It's the need to have that. And then another thing is liquidity. Liquidity means in a project as a contractor, you often lay out money for your customer. And the question is, when will you receive that back? Your credit line may be a problem. You finance the project of your customer over maybe months until you receive the money back. And if you have a portfolio of maybe 10 or 20 projects for 10 or 20 contractors, customers, of course, this means you may lose control of that, because each of these projects has its own little outlays, and you lose the control over that. You're no more. You don't know how much money you're laying out for them. Someone should control that. And these are intertwined. These different business interests are so intertwined. So what does it mean to have project business instead of an internal project? In an internal project, the people for whom we work, I like to call them target stakeholders, are inside the same organization as the project manager and as the team that works on the project. So it's based on internal agreements. There are internal agreements between the different parties inside the organization to do that. In project business, you find that the target stakeholders and the team, including the project manager, are in different organizations. Yeah? So they are linked with contracts. And the typical content of contract is that the contractor has to perform and the customer has to pay. And by the way, it could well be, and that's a good thing to have two project managers, to have a project manager on the customer side and to have a project manager on the contractor side. I often see projects really suffer from poor organization on one side or the other side. One of the two sides does not have a project manager. One of the two sides has a project manager, but the project manager does not even know who the project sponsor is there. They don't know who is my direct escalation channel if I run into problems. And it could be on both sides. And it can be very damaging for the other party, or the other party takes benefit from that and maybe has a benefit from that by ripping off the one who has the problem. I love surveys, and here's another survey I made, actually two surveys again, 2017 and 2021. Again, the link that you see here, you don't have to write it down or photograph it. I will give Orest the slide for download, the slides for download, so that you can just click it here. Contractor share of work. I asked people, what percentage of the project work is done by contractors? And the options were our own people do all the work, so there are no contractors there. Then contractors do less than 50%, a minority of the work. Then they do roughly 50%, more than 50%. Now the majority of work is done by project managers, and then we have contractors do all the work here. The contractors do all the work in the project. And interesting, if you look at the three lines, contractors do 50% or more of the work. This was the part that I found interesting. So they have a significant part. They do a significant part of the project. In 2017, 55% said, this is true in my project. This is true in the situation that I have. And in 2021, it was 65%. So this is a growing field. This is a growing topic. And this goes hand in hand with the make or buy decisions. This is what you see when more and more make decisions are replaced with buy decisions. Then, of course, you have more contractors doing the work. I have another study here for you, made in March 2022, and asked people, do you agree that project business requires specific education? It's another big problem. And again, it's on both sides. It's on customer side, customers who do a lot of procurement, and a multi-tier procurement with contractors, subcontractors, and so on. But it's also true on the contractor side. I asked both sides, and 90% said, yes, it's true. 10% said, no, I don't agree with that. So 9 out of 10 project managers said they think project business requires specific education. Then I asked them, have you received specific education to manage project business? And 1/3 said yes. By the way, it's a number I don't fully trust. I don't fully trust. I'm not 100% sure that they understood that this is specific education for project business. I think the real number is smaller. But anyway, if it's true, it was 1/3 saying, yes, we have that. It was 2/3 saying, no, we didn't have enough. We didn't have any or not much education for that. So there is so much missing out here. 2/3 say we don't have it. 90% said we need it. So there is a big gap in here. And practitioners are uneducated often in project management. This lady here learned something about business management, but she doesn't know how to do project management. Others have learned project management, but they are missing the education in business management. And a third group has no education in either project management or business management. So we have a huge gap here. And how do people fill this knowledge gap? They fill it by trial and error. I met some project managers who do project business on both sides, customers and contractors. They were very, very good. But how did they learn that? They learned it by trial and error. Do they pass it on to younger colleagues? Probably no. They don't have the time for that. Maybe the organization has some concepts of mentoring inside the organization, and it doesn't work because these are all too busy with their projects on both sides. So what is done here is trial and error. But we have a problem with trial and error. Trial in a project, in project business, is expensive, and error even more. Some more data. Causes of conflicts in project supply networks. PSNs is project supply networks. When we have more than 2 parties involved, it's a project supply network. Sometimes it is 100 or more parties involved in a project. And I ask people, what is the most common cause of conflict in your organization? They could order them, so they could give a first answer and then a second most common and a third most common, and so on a scale from 1 to 5. And the interesting thing with almost 3, the most important, most frequent cause of conflicts was conflicting business interests. From hindsight, this is not surprising. This is somewhat maybe predictable, but it's interesting to not just have some predictions and some ideas about that, but to have data about that. Then the next one is diversity of cultures, legal systems. So it's about the organizations. The organizations are not compatible from various reasons. And then it's individuals inside these organizations. Number 3, very, very near to the previous one. I think with the accuracy that we have here, it's more or less the same. So incompatible egos. I remember I was in a customer project when I was very, very young, and I had a perfect relationship with the project manager on customer side, an automotive company, where we did some process, built up some process equipment, and we had a perfect relationship with each other. But it would have been impossible to bring my boss and the boss of the project manager on customer side to bring them together. This led to disaster. The two did not come along with each other. 2 big egos, and they couldn't come along with each other. So I know this very well. And many others, including things like breach of confidence by a party, or corruption. Even corruption can be a cause of conflict, a very important cause of conflict, by the way. Internal projects and customer projects have different business interests. This has many, many aspects. This is the most obvious aspect in here. This is the customer view that you see here. This is still an internal project for the customer. And there are two options how they want to run their project. They may have a single delivery or what is called stage deliveries. Another word for that is incremental deliveries. Means exactly the same. We have a small partial delivery after a relatively short time of the project. Then over time, we deliver more and more and more. And in the end, the whole delivery is there. The difference in these models is if you have only one single delivery, benefit realization begins after the project. There's a project life cycle. It ends with a handover of the result, and then you start the benefit realization life cycle. If you have these staged deliveries, then benefit realization begins a bit earlier already, not with the full benefit. It begins with a partial benefit, then benefit goes up and up and up. But at one point in time, the project is over. And what you see in both models, what they have in common, the majority of benefit realization is in the future. It's the future when the organization expects to realize the benefits from the project. So what is the contractor view? The contractor view is completely different. During the course of the project, we will receive payments from the customer. And benefit realization begins with the first payment, and it ends with the last payment, at least monetary benefits. There may be some other benefits, but monetary benefits end with the last payment. So there's a totally different view on how to take benefits from the project. For the customer, it's in the future, maybe in a far future. For the contractor, it is right now, here and now. Yeah? It's right now, and the money that we are not making right now, we will not make it in the future, because when the last payment is over, then the last payment is done, and our business interest, at least in this project, is gone. So that's an example how big the differences are. The process to do a project as business from both sides, buyers and sellers, is quite complicated. I don't want to go into all the details here and all the terminology here. Terminology, by the way, is another big problem. There are so many terms here that people don't really understand and use falsely. And then there are misunderstandings or troubles at court. Yeah? When a judge asks, hey, why did you use this word when you mean something different? Yeah? And then the judge may tell you what you did wrong. Yeah? In a worst case. In a worst case, it always could end at court. But what you see is here, it begins on the buyer side. They make a buy decision. They develop some procurement documents that they send out. Then sellers make a decision. Are we sending an offer to the customer? And when they submit that, then some decision will be made on the customer side, again, which leads to a contract. Now, for two of them, this whole thing is over again. Yeah? They did not win the business. One of them becomes the contractor. Now we have a customer and a contractor. Before that, all we had was buyers and sellers, but they were still not customers and contractors. Now they are customer and contractor. And now the project is done until at one point in time, the contract is closed out. Probably everything has been delivered by the time that needed to be delivered. Everything has been performed that needed to be performed, and it all had been paid. So two organizations both met their obligations, hopefully. And then there is some deliverable there that the customer is utilizing. And there may be some service business after the project, but this will be rather small business in comparison to the project. The next challenge that we have is this business development process is typically very competitive. There's competition between the different sellers, of course. Each of them wants to have the business, but only one of them will get it. There's also competition between the buyer and the sellers. The buyer, of course, has the interest to pay the smallest amount possible for the largest delivery performance possible. And the seller's view is the opposite to that. Yeah? Gaining as much money as possible, bringing as much money as possible home for the least work and for the least effort that you would put, and the least costs that you want to put into this project. So we have a very competitive situation. It's very normal. Now the contract has been signed, and the two parties that remain here immediately at the very moment have to change their behavior. If you stay competitive, this project will fail. This project will fail dramatically. You have to focus on completing, not on competing. A nice thing with the English language, we couldn't do this in German, focus on completing over competing. Then we have these project supply networks that I talked about already, where we see one of our contractors here is a prime contractor. This prime contractor is at the same time seller to the buyer, but at the same time buyer to subcontractors who are sellers again. And there may be a third and a fourth tier. This can become very, very complex, and it can be very difficult to manage that. I originally come from automotive industry, and in production, in manufacturing, people know how to manage that. It's called supply chain management, and a supply chain manager knows exactly who is involved in such a situation, what are their roles, what are their obligations. In projects, no one knows that. Customers often have no idea who is in their project. I had a case recently where a customer bought some development work from a contractor. The contractor couldn't do it, didn't have the competencies and the free capacity, so they gave it to a subcontractor. And then the customer learned about that much, much later and noticed, hey, this subcontractor, this is our fiercest competitor. Our fiercest competitor is part of our project. And it was really a lighthouse project for them. This was exactly the company they did not want to have in their project, and they did not expect to be there. They were so surprised. Then the next problem is, this is more what it looks like in production, in manufacturing, where you have clear supply chain management. This is what it often looks like in a project. It gets very, very complicated. Lots of organizations involved, and some are involved with different ways. This one here is a direct contractor to the customer, but also a subcontractor, where this is then the prime contractor, and they deliver something else there. And we have a consortium in here. A consortium is a temporary joint venture. Several contractors went together, started a joint venture for the project, work as one company, and when the project is finished, they may end the consortium as well and dissolve it again. And the consortium again may be a prime contractor. You see how complex this is. And often it is very opaque. No one really understands. No one really understands who is all involved in that. What are they doing there? And each of these interfaces here, each of these arrows can be a place where you run into conflicts, into trouble. This can be the cause of trouble for the entire project, because two contractors do not come along with each other. Then we have to understand how marginal costing works for the contractor. This is not the contractor side, not the customer side. I think that's a very important thing to understand. When I said projects should be profitable, customer projects should be profitable, language-wise, this is not 100% accurate. Why that? Because the project does not make a profit. The project makes a margin. You see here, project number 4 has a certain revenue, but it also has direct costs here, the costs to do this project for the customer. And the money that is left over between those two numbers, this is the margin from the project. And project 3 has such a margin. Project 2 has such a margin. Project 1 has such a margin. Together, they have to cover 2 more types of costs. G&A for general administrative costs, also called overheads, another word for that, overheads. And the costs for business development. You have to have, as a contractor organization, a very effective business development process, because this project business is temporary. You know right from the start, at one point in time, there will be the last payment from the customer, and then this business, at least from a financial perspective, is over. So you need new business to have a new income stream for the organization. And that's why you need a very effective business development process to make sure when one project is finished, another project will be there that feeds your mouth, brings bread on the table when this old project is over. So you need this as well. These two are indirect costs. They are independent from the projects down here. You cannot say business development per project costs so and so much. No, it costs so and so much to bring new business in. It's not something you can directly link to projects. And then hopefully you have some money left here. Some organizations, it may be a bit more, they are profitable. Some it can be very, very small. I often see numbers around 10%, maybe less than 10%, sometimes 5%, which is not enough for an organization to survive. If anything goes wrong in here, if something really goes wrong in here, you don't have the reserves to cope with that, and you may run into insolvency here. So profitability, as I said, is not greed, it is need. It's need to survive for the organization. So as a project, you don't bring profit to the organization. What you bring is margins, and the margins have to cover some other costs. And then if some money remains for you, if some money is left over, this is then really profit. I'd like to show you a solution how challenges in project business can be resolved. And I took this solution from a NASA project. This project was 1999, a failed project in 1999. The interesting thing about this project is we have a lot of data on that. We have a report on that, which goes very much into details, but actually it's the first 5 pages. That is the most interesting part, because in the first 5 pages, maybe even less, they talk about organizational matters, and then it gets very technical. Our topic here, of course, is organizational, it's business matters, is not the technical side. There was a problem with a probe which was sent to Mars in 1999 called the Climate Orbiter. Orbiter, you may hear it already. There was an intention to send it to Mars and then bring it into an orbit around Mars to observe the climate on Mars. Mars has a very thin atmosphere, but it has some clouds there, and it has no sandstorms and other things. It has some snow, yeah, but that's not the whole topic here. It has sandstorms there and other things to observe what is going on the Mars. The problem is such a probe must go very, very fast to Mars. Mars is far away, so you need a very high speed for this orbiter. But then the gravity of Mars is very low, so the orbit must be slow. Otherwise, the orbiter will fly away. So you have to slow it down on the way, and you also need to steer it on the way to correct the course on the way so that you do not miss Mars. It's a very small little dot in the sky, and you don't want to miss this one. So it has some rockets on board, some small rocket engines on board to steer it and to slow it down. And there was a problem with the force data between NASA, as we see is the customer here, and Lockheed as a contractor. There was a miscommunication in numbers. For NASA, it went without saying numbers on the thrust. How much thrust does this rocket have to deliver, and for how long? These are the 2 numbers that are important here. These numbers for NASA, it was absolutely clear. It went without saying. These are in metrical units because NASA uses metrical units. They measure in meters and kilometers and so on, or here in Newton seconds. That's what we use as well here in Central Europe. Lockheed, it went without saying. Of course, this must be US customary units, like inches and pounds and so on. Here it is pound seconds. So they delivered the numbers in pound seconds, and there was no unit assigned to that. It was just a naked number. For Lockheed, it was clear this means pound seconds. For NASA, it was clear this means Newton seconds. And by the way, if you look at the difference between the two, it's really big. a pound second is 4.45. A pound is 4.5 Newton. The same is then true for now Newton seconds and pound seconds. So the numbers they delivered were more than 4 times too small for NASA to keep this probe on course. And it's such a strange course to lose such a multi-billion project. For NASA, it was about, I think, $350 million something in value, but there were a lot of experiments on that. There was research that should have been done. And if you add this all up, it was more than $1 billion in value that got lost here. What was the problem? The problem was that people should have talked much more in the project. NASA and Lockheed should have had some talk about the units they use. Unfortunately, there was not enough communication for that. There are 2 reasons why we may run into trouble with communication. One is time and resources. It takes time to do that. It costs some money to do that. We should also not forget, in 1999, they had no Zoom or things like that that we have today, and that are so easy to use and so cheap and so on. It was much, much more expensive by that time to do that. And the other thing that is often lacking is goodwill and trust. If you have a corporate counsel, a lawyer in the organization, the counsel may tell you, don't communicate too much. In a very worst case scenario, but it's always possible, this may end at court, this project. And everything you write down, everything you say in front of witnesses may be used against you in such a moment. So be careful with communications. Don't communicate too much. From a project manager perspective, our view is totally different. Our view says, of course, you cannot communicate too much. Yeah? We have to communicate that all. And from their point of view, the lawyers are, of course, right. But from our point of view, we are also right. We say, no, we have to have well-working, intensive communications between customers and contractors and subcontractors and who else is involved in the organization. And NASA developed a fundamental solution, and it's an organizational solution. It's not a technical solution here. They published this report here, yeah, the mishap investigation board. I think the word mishap is quite funny here, because mishap is a little thing. Yeah? It's a little accident. It's not a big thing. This was a big thing. Yeah? But I find this word a bit funny. And they published it in 2000, and they said, we have a problem with our old paradigm, which is faster, cheaper, better. We want to replace this with a new paradigm, which is simply called mission success first. They said it's a new method of managing projects, a change in culture, and a new method of managing projects. Yeah. It's something that all individuals should follow. It's something where everyone involved, not just organizations, not just companies, contractor companies. No, their employees should feel ownership and accountability for their own work, but also for the entire mission. Everyone in this project should feel that this is my project and I want to do the best to make this project successful. So it's not just about organizations, it's about the individuals in these organizations. I had several trainees, several students in my seminars who work at NASA contractors. And they told me how much this changed. And again, tomorrow I will have a web talk over the web with the former NASA learning officer. Yeah? And we will talk about this thing. What it changed inside NASA. I know what it changed inside the contractor organizations, and it changed a lot for them. Yeah? It also means for NASA, if your contractor has a problem, it is your job to help the contractor. You cannot just say, it's their problem, it's not my problem. No, you have to help them. And then another statement, mission success first is the overarching focus of this report. Statement taken from the report. Mark had to learn project business management, not just project management, project business management. He had 2 options, learning by trial and error or learning by professional qualification. You have to collect experience, of course, but you don't have to make all the errors to learn something from them. Mark's employer made the decision to formalize qualification, including things like literature that he can read. Unfortunately, we don't have that much literature. I'm really trying to change PMI's mind on that PMI takes more responsibility in that. Seminars, of course. We have a little webinar here. Then consulting. You may need some people who help you with consulting. Then literature. These two books, by the way, Commercial Project Management and Breakthrough Project Management, look at project business from the customer side, not from the contractor side. The first one here is my book, and this looks from both sides, customer side and contractor side. Mark's employer made also sure that Mark had a contact number to call. This is something that project managers need in this field, that there is someone who they can call and say, hey, I have a problem, I have a conflict, I have something that I may not be able to resolve alone. Can you help me with that? Yeah. And then there should be a person there who knows enough about project business management. It could be a trainer like me. It could also be a colleague who is retired, yeah, and who has some time to help him with the experience the person has. And so that the person is not left alone. Yeah. Do you have any questions?
I have a question because when you describe the difference between interests of customer and contractor, yeah. So doesn't the client, the customer, want a project to be a success? So yes. Yeah, it expects some VIP, you know, some things, but probably he or she wants the project to be a success as well. So I understand that probably it's a different understanding what is success of the project for both sides.
Yeah. I think all sides want project success. This is something the customer wants and the contractor wants. I do from time to time a workshop with companies. It's called the Healing Day. Healing Day is what we do when the relationship between customers and contractors has turned somewhat sour, and when the relationship is no more good, then we bring them together with a third party. That's me. I'm leading that, and first I give them maximum half a day. Often they need less, but maximum half a day, so that they can talk about all the problems that they have with each other, all the things that don't go well in the project and that are so frustrating. So that's a bit to allow people to let off steam, yeah, to get the pressure off, to talk about these things, which makes people open for solutions. Then often after the lunch break, yeah, they had something to eat, they are in a much better mood now. Then we talk about solutions that they all can do together. And my point of attack, yeah, my point where I bring them together again is this point. All of you want a great project. The customer wants it because the customer does the project because the person or the company expects something from the project, but contractors want that too. They want something to be proud of. Yeah, even as a contractor, you want to say, "Hey, look, this is something I made," or "Here is a customer organization, and I made a piece of software for them, and they work so well today because of my software." This is something every contractor wants as well. So the point to bring them together when they are in conflict is really this: we want this going well. Unfortunately, there are reasons why people forget that over time. And this can be on both sides. Often it is on both sides at the same time, customer and contractor, because there are conflicts, because one party has the feeling the other party is not really honest with them or does the wrong things, or whatever the reason is. They forget this on the way. And then it's my job to bring them back and say, hey, there is something you all want. Let's go back to this point. And let's make sure that every member of this network, this supply network, including the customer, knows what they have to do, so that this is good project for everyone. So yes, this is so important to overcome conflicts, but conflicts still happen, unfortunately. And in sometimes they end at court, yeah, which is bad news for all parties. That's the worst thing, but it happens.
So that's the kind of mediation you do, yeah? Here.
It's a form of mediation, but it's group mediation. It's not a one-to-one mediation. It's group mediation that I do. I have a customer representative and then representatives from 5, maybe 6, 7 contractors in there. We spend a day together, and the idea is to bring them back to this understanding. We have a common interest here. We have more in common than what divides us. That's the idea, and we know what we all have to do. They have to propose. I cannot do that. They have to propose what they can do, what they can contribute to making the project a well-working project and a successful project. But they have to offer that, and then it's a bit like family therapy. It's very similar to family therapy. Yeah. I'm not sure if you ever had family therapy. I never had one, but I know how it works. Yeah. And it's very similar to family therapy. Did this answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions?
No.
Yeah? No? Okay. So let me show you some things that you will get. First of all, tomorrow I will have a meeting, public meeting, a web talk with Ed Hoffman. That's the guy from NASA. And he knows the story that I told you and much, much more, of course. From inside NASA, he was the Chief Knowledge Officer, Director of the Academy for Program, Project, and Engineering Leadership at NASA. So he was really high ranked. Meanwhile, he's retired, but he has a lot of stories to tell. And he was there around the year 2000 and the next 10, 15 years. And he knows what happened during that time. So I hope he will contribute a lot. So if you want to join that, just let me do something. I'll just put this link. Can I copy the link here? No, I cannot copy it here, but I can copy it. Just a second. I will just put it in the chat here. So if you want to join this session, this meeting, you can just come in. It's free, doesn't cost anything. And I promise you it will be very, very interesting. And as I said, I'm sure he has much, much more to tell than what I could tell you here from an insider perspective. Sometimes the best place to talk about such things is inside. Sometimes the best place is to talk from a distance. So I'm of course the distance guy here. What comes with when it comes to NASA? Yeah. Was there a question in the chat, by the way? Yes, we will share the slides. Okay, Orest, I haven't seen the chat yet. I don't have the opportunity. Yeah. But now in the chat, you see the link. And if you like, if you find this interesting and have the time, of course, yeah, just join us tomorrow and see what he has to tell. He's a very interesting guy. I saw him on a conference, saw him speak on a conference, and it was a great, great presentation that he made. But this here will not be a presentation. This will just be an informal talk, and you will, of course, again be able to ask questions. Yeah. So then, what else do I have for you? If you haven't seen the older presentation, the previous presentation that I held at the Ukraine chapter, PMI Ukraine chapter, that's the bottom one. And again, you can download that slide deck and then click on these links. They should be working. If you want to know more about me, this is my website. And then I have the Project Business Foundation, which is a platform where I distribute things like these survey data. And it's also the platform that does these web talks. We had some interesting web talks in the past about risk management and about legal things. The last one was about legal things with a lawyer from UK. So this is what I publish here. And if you're interested in these market research, you saw some of them here in the slide deck and the presentation, then you can see them all. And there will be more in the near future. I have some very interesting topics where I want to ask people, what is your experience? What is your observation? What do you see out there? I have my ideas what the results will be, but the best way is always to ask people and be open for the results. Sometimes it is what you expect, but sometimes you have surprises there. I had some great surprises when I asked questions like that. Right, that's what I have for you here. Yeah, my book again. And that's it. Thank you from my side for your participation. Orest, may I ask you to stay with me just another minute so that I can give you the download link for the slide deck? I don't hear you. This was a yes. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. Orest, do you have some closing words? If you can make yourself heard again. I don't hear you.
What about now?
Ah, back. You're back.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, Oliver, for great presentation. There were no questions in chat, but people wrote that it was amazing, interesting webinar, engaging and well structured. So yeah, thanks again. And yes, of course, I will stay with you here.
Okay, so I will just give you the download link, just a second, so that you can pass it on. Just one. Here it is. Yeah, and here is download this presentation, copy link, and I put this into the Zoom chat so that you can pass it on. You can download it or just give the link to people.
All right. Yeah, I got that. We will send to everyone who registered.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thanks again, Oliver. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
I enjoyed.
Thank you for having me here. And maybe in 1.5 years, the next presentation.
Maybe sooner.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Whatever I can do for the Ukraine chapter, I do that. Yeah, we had a 24 hours, actually 25 hours in the end, talk last year for UNICEF for Ukraine, yeah, where we had a lot of speakers from all around the world. Yeah, talking the whole day around the clock. It was called Talk Around the Clock. Yeah, so if there is something I can do. Oh, by the way, we'll have a class in the near future. I have to send a message to people. I just remember that to students. So we will have a class. So if I can help Ukraine with the small means that I have, with the limited means that I have as a single person, but I'm happy to do that. I think what is happening to your country, this is so awful, and this is so evil. Yeah. So. Please, whenever I can do something, and Roman knows that too. Yeah, I'm happy to help with the means that I have, with the limitations, of course.
Yeah, many thanks for that.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening, Oliver.
Have a wonderful night. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye, everyone else. Yep. Bye.